Cool. Started. Let me get onto my seat. I am solo today. And let me play with my phone for a second. I think I'm doing fairly well for being alone. All right. We'll give people a few seconds to log on. How's everyone doing today? Ew, that's more of my friend than I ever wanted to see. Thank you, Facebook, for giving everyone the ability to show that. And share. If you guys could help me with the sharing today, I don't have Wintus's sharing power or Clacks. They're both supernatural with it, and I am just me. So super duper appreciated. Nope, 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 nope. Figure it out, dummy. In a group. And reboot. Ah, good afternoon, Avis. Good afternoon, Jessica. All right, so I'm a little sweaty, a little hot. It's a little warm outside, and for whatever reason, the studio is like 90 degrees. I don't know how. Thank you, Jessica. Yeah, I don't know how Mr. Del Rico sat in here in his literal. He had a muscle shirt, a white shirt, and then his jacket on in here. Like the dude's tough. Yeah, let me crack one of these. And so, just a heads up, today's not about Flint. It's a more national issue. It's something closer to my heart in many ways than I think a lot of my co-hosts can ever feel. Um, with Memorial Day coming up, I think it's kind of more of a thing for me. Um, and this way, I can keep the integrity of mine and Clack show solutions instead of doing my normal on solution, like my normal go off some rails, which reflects poorly on Clack, who is running for office. I figure I'd rather talk about this and then go off the rails Friday. Uh, so I'm kind of reversing the two right now. Like, since Memorial Day is closer to the rant day, we're just gonna say I'm doing my Memorial Day stuff today, if that's cool with everyone. If not, I mean, I'm still gonna do it, and there's other things you guys can go watch. I love you all, but if it ain't for you, it ain't for you. So today, I'm wearing my battalion pride, Second Battalion, 12th Infantry Regiment, Lethal Warriors. I just got the shirt in last week. It's got all the companies on the back: Apache Company, Bravo Company, Chosen Company. Uh, can't remember HHC anymore. And then Spartan Company, which they used to be Felon Company. They used to be pretty fucking based. So I'm wearing this today for it. And got a few things to talk about, right? Memorial Day is coming up. It is a day to remember our fallen veterans, our fallen service members, for families to mourn and for the country to show honor and respect. Cool, fine, dandy. It is a big day to me. It used to be a day where I'd have a shot for each friend. That has passed. Over the years, though, that shot, though, it was like in the beginning 4 or 5 shots. Then it progressed to, uh, you know, all of them together about a couple cups. Then past that, it was, fast forward to year 2024, and the amount of brothers I've lost, brothers and sisters now, it's gotten up to be about a bottle. I stopped drinking on Memorial Day because like my liver can't handle that no more. I'm not that young, and I don't want to go down that route, especially with that much liquor. If you're depressed, bad things happen. And A large reason for so many of those suicides. Oh, I can't say that on Facebook. A large reason for those self deletions. Good afternoon, Sarah. Is veterans oftentimes can't get help. Uh, I broke my back in 2018. Uh, I went on to try to get disability through the VA. They rated my back in its broken state at 10%. 10% for me not being able to lift 35 pounds without a struggle anymore. And, I'm a smaller dude, but I'm physically fit. 10% for losing feeling in my legs at times. 10% for like having my wife have to pick me up off the ground because my back gave out or my dog knocked me over. A typical morning for me is I wake up usually from a nightmare and I have to take stock of where I'm at. Okay, I'm home. Everything's fine. Nothing's out to get me. Best case scenario, it's a nightmare. Worst case scenario, it's a memory. Um, from there, I check my heart rate, my breathing, because I also have a migraine condition. That's oftentimes why I'm not here. Um, my migraines or my back will keep me from being able to leave the house. That's why I miss my shows. Uh, so, my breathing, my heart rate, my blood pressure, those contribute to what's going to happen with my head that day. Am I going to be sitting there in agony at the slightest smell or sound or light? Or am I going to be fine, get up and be a productive human being today? Uh, when I come on and I go, I had a migraine, guys. I was so bad. I was looking at a drill bit, thinking about maybe relieving the pressure. Only 50% of the time, I'm joking. They get that bad. That comes from a traumatic brain injury, which we'll get into in a minute. So I sit up. Okay, my head's not going to be terrible today. As I'm sitting up in bed, I try to figure out, okay, how are my legs doing today? Can I feel them properly, or does it feel like I have TV static running from my back down to my legs? Can I stand up right now? 10% for that. I get up, I take my kid to school. I do as much around the house as I can, sweep, mop. If I can get to it, do the dishes, uh, you know, let the dogs out, straighten up. Try not to be a slob or a detriment, a drag on my wife. That, kid comes home from school, then I have to take her to work. And if I have a migraine, I have to tough it through now because she has no way to get home other than me. And I'm not leaving my kid, out in the township trying to find a way home. Give me a second, John. So my back was actually broken after I got out of active duty. I came to Flint and I couldn't find a job. I tried re-enlisting and they were only taking airborne at the time. This is 2016. And you can't get me into an airplane. Hell, they have problems getting me into helicopters anymore because every time I got in a helicopter, they took me someplace where someone was trying to kill me. So I joined the Guard. And Michigan drivers, we have three types. You got your normal drivers, semi decent drivers, rated nationwide as not being terrible. You've got the folks in Flint, majority, that don't know what road road laws are. And then you've got the Ye backwoods mother bears. And the person who happened to be driving the LMTV that day, the 5-ton troop transport, was a yee motherfucker. He hit a massive pothole in the tank trail, and it bounced me off the ruck in front of me, and I slammed my back and fractured my T3 on the metal backing. So that's how my back went. Um, so that's my day. Everything revolves around my disabilities. Everything from shows to if I'm gaming to if I'm doing research to if I'm trying to advocate to even just taking care of my wife and kids, my dogs revolves around my disabilities. When I broke my back, like I said, I went in for disability. They said 10%. The saving grace there is they rated me 70% for PTSD, which I've had incidents with. Everything's under control, obviously. I function as a human being. I don't throw money around stupidly, or at least I try not to. Yes, I do have problems with impulse spending, but who doesn't these days? And my migraine condition. Uh, the three of those 70% for PTSD, 50% for migraines, and 10% for my back got me up to 90%, which $2,400 a month. And my back, PTSD, and headaches were covered by the VA. They cover the medical expenses. There's a chronic problem in the United States VA healthcare system where when veterans go for disability, we get underrated. I made the mistake when I went in for my VA disability rating, where the rater, uh, she accidentally, and I found out later this was a trick, and I shouldn't have fallen for it. Dropped a pen off the desk. Being a nice guy, I reached down. Yeah, it hurts. Bend over, grab the pen, and give it to her. She said, "Oh, the veteran can bend and do things." No, thank you, Jessica. Or maybe not. Thank you. Uh, anyway, the veteran can do things. Veteran can bend over. In the paperwork, um, there is a problem, but it isn't bad. 10%. I lived with that rating for until 2022, and it's enough to pay my bills in Flint, and it was enough to take care of my family. But there's also things I wanted to do with life that it couldn't do, and I just couldn't work. No employer wants to take on a guy who well, except for security, for whatever reason, they like guys with PTSD because we pay attention to everything. And as security, you're a glorified professional witness when someone gets caught doing something. I'm not there to stop it. I'm there to, call the cops and testify. So they love those, but they also don't like a guy who can be out 2 or 3 days because of a migraine. They don't like a guy who can't walk around because his legs may give out. And they couldn't leave me on a job site alone because if my legs gave out, there was no one there to pick me up. And I fell into a pretty bad depression. That's part of why I ran for office, do something, not sit at home, be a bump on a log. I went in for my ears. I've got pretty bad hearing loss. Gunshots, being blown up, being around, 1,000-pound bombs dropped by F-15s, Apache Hellfires, hell, even F-16s just carpeting a mountain ridge. Yeah, well, I'm very close to the ridge. I'm almost on top, and they just carpet 250-pound bombs across it. It destroys your hearing. VA turned the hearing down. They said not not service connected. My knees, they said service connected at 0%. I've got no cartilage in it anymore. It's just bone on bone. Several other things I went in for, and I couldn't get my rating. Another problem with the VA is when I was being treated for PTSD, and it took a lot for me to get in there. They, while speaking to someone helped, and she was a wonderful lady. I go to therapy if you need therapy. 100%. Like, I will never ever talk down on someone to say get therapy. Like, if you need it, get it every day. My problem was with the medications. Um, as you can tell by my Red Bull habit, I suffer from PT or ADHD for my PTSD, and I need copious amounts of caffeine to kind of balance that out. ADHD, when you have it, certain things have adverse effects. So when you see kids taking Ritalin, it's actually amphetamines. It slows them down. Whereas normal folks, you're going to be bouncing off the walls, clenching your teeth. You're going to have a million creative ideas in a second. Us, it slows us down. They wanted to put me on that. I said, hell no. I had an incident with a antidepressant that had amphetamines in it. I'm never touching amphetamines again, just because that it put me off. So I just go untreated for ADHD. I self medicate. Um, then they wanted to put me on a mood stabilizer. Fine, dandy. I suffer from depression from the PTSD quite a bit. You can tell some days I'm here and I'm here. Other days I'm here and I'm checked out. That's why so often you will hardly ever see me alone like today. I have to have someone with me to keep me engaged, especially on those days where I'm checked out. Nothing I can really do about it. But I enjoy coming here and talking to you. I enjoy coming here talking about Flint. Today, enjoying opening up and talking about some issues veterans face. Um, so they gave me a mood stabilizer. The problem was my primary care physician, also VA, had me on the same mood stabilizer, but for controlling pain. So they were overdosing me. And in addition to that, neither prescription provider checked the interaction between this medication and the cyclobenzaprine or Flexerol they were giving me for my back, um, which overdosing itself could have caused a brain hemorrhage. And then the interaction between Flexerol and this drug could have caused my body to relax so much that my diaphragm wouldn't work and I would suffocate. So I've refused meds since then. Literally unmedicated, I'm not doing it. The only meds I accept from the VA now, from any doctor ever now, are sumatriptan for my migraines because I have to, and cyclobenzaprine for my back, and it's just a muscle relaxer because let's face it, when my muscles tighten up, clench up, they push parts of my spine out of alignment. It's that weak. My spine curves toward the top forward and further out, going mid back outward than it should. And it doesn't really straighten out toward the bottom. It gets wobbly. And I've got two herniated vertebrae. So when my back tenses up, I go down. Um, Embarrassing to say, but I've had to have my wife bathe me or dress me. Uh, she's had to shave me at times because, I tried doing the scruffy thing. It just doesn't work. I've had my wife have to pick me up off the ground and move me around the house, literally bodily, like I'm a baby, because I just couldn't get parts of me to work. So I have to use those two drugs. Everything else is off the table. They've offered me opiates. I said, hell no. They've offered me tramadol. I said, hell no. One, addiction runs pretty heavily in my family. And two, I've seen what those drugs can do to someone if they lose control. I've seen it rip apart families. I've seen it rip apart lives. I've seen a couple instances where one person who couldn't control themselves on those medications, given for the right reasons, but they just couldn't control themselves, um, ripped apart an entire neighborhood. So I just won't touch them. I refuse. That's also part of what hurt my VA disability claim. That veteran refuses medication, must not be in that much pain. They don't take into account that I was terrified. Um, and we'll get back to the rating here in a little bit. When I got out in 2014, when I got out in 2014, it took my brother, who weighs 100 plus more pounds than me, well, at that time, and my wife bodily throwing me into his truck. This is before my back was broken, so I was able to fight. Um, throw on some tunes that he knew would put me in a happy place, and take me to the VA just to register. I was that terrified of them. They wanted to do a intake, and they diagnosed me first time PTSD there, and I was supposed to get treatment for it. But if any of you guys remember, in 2014, 2015, the VA had a scandal of hidden veterans wait list. So I'd have an appointment. They'd schedule it about 4 months out at that time. And then 2 days before I was supposed to go to my appointment, they'd call and cancel and reschedule. They do this over and over again. It took me over a year to see someone or at least get an appointment for it. And I ended up just not going because it didn't seem like that big a deal to them. Like, hey, if you can keep putting me off, I must not be that bad, right? Um, Shit like that had been happening for decades. Shit like that is, well, first off, both my parents served, and both my dad's brothers served, and one of my mother's brothers served. My dad and his brothers served during the Vietnam era. My dad managed and fired missiles aboard Navy ships, managed nuclear weapons, yada, yada, yada. My uncle was a crypto tech. He flew over Vietnam, cl- listening to enemy transmissions and trying to decode them. And my other uncle, the younger of the three brothers, was 11 Charlie. He is a mortarman. So he was the closest to what I did in the army. I was 11 Bravo rifleman. So they find me, shoot at me. The 11, well, 11 Bravos myself shoots back, and then the 11 Charlies sit way, way back and drop explosives on them. Because of a lot of the stuff that happened to my uncle Tim, the younger, the Charlie, he developed stomach cancer. And the VA put off his appointments for years. And thankfully, his stomach cancer wasn't that aggressive. And by the time they got to him, it was only stage 3. And they had to remove his stomach. So his digestive tract went mouth, esophagus, upper intestine, lower intestine out. Uh, Unfortunately, the cancerous cells were still there. And I think it was only 8 years after he had his stomach removed, the cancer came back and it took him from us. My Uncle Phil, his older brother, the oldest of the three, flying in Vietnam, saw some shit, heard some shit, lost a lot of friends. His upbringing wasn't that great. He went to the VA for therapy. Eventually, the PTSD from his service and other services he did, as well as his upbringing, ended up taking him from us. My dad, like I said, was a sailor. Back then, ships weren't as stable as they are now, so constant rocking took his knees from him. I think from the age of 6 onward, my dad wasn't really able to lift me up. I mean, he tried, but his knees would go. He did his best to not let that hinder his life. But all that rocking and such, and getting the shit beat out of him aboard a ship trying to turn sideways, also damaged his back. And he developed a degenerative disc disease. It's not really a disease, it's just damage in your vertebrae and your discs causes the body to dissolve it to try to get rid of the issue. So by the time my dad passed, he had been missing two vertebrae. When he got out in 1992, he filled out the paperwork and forms for the VA to try to get disability. And they kept sending him the same form back saying filled out. He eventually gave up. He eventually just said, screw it, I'll make things work on my own. So he missed out on VA benefits for 30 years. I still think they owe him. I blame them for, well, a lot of the hardships my dad had, losing of one uncle and not helping another uncle enough. When some of the respiratory problems that my mom had, she was a cook in the Navy. This is 1960s, 1970s, 1980s. And they were basically taking hot pans, hot bowls, hot pots, and throwing bleach in it to clean it and scrub it out. That fucks up your lungs. She died of COPD. A lot of veterans are intimidated by the VA. I know I am. And a lot of veterans don't get the help they need because of that. I've lost a lot of friends because of that. Um, my move to Florida coming up. I had some friends down there years ago. We served together. None of them are left. Many moved out, but many are just gone. So, with the hassle that the VA gives and trying to get help, and, you know, you just can't do some things anymore. So, you need financial help too. Uh, you go to apply yourself and you get shot down. I went the solo route for 3 years. Then I reached out to a veteran service organization. I won't name them. They're free and they couldn't help. I was stuck at 90. Last year, I reached out to a group called VetLink and they sent me to this random fucking place in the middle of Michigan. Told me to talk to this doctor in a urgent care. And she evaluated my back. No tricks, no bullshit. She asked, "Tilt, where does it hurt?" And I got maybe 15 degrees before it started hurting. She said, "Stop. Don't go any further. Do the other way. Go forward, go backward. Okay. Always stop where it hurts. Tell me how it is on the worst days. Tell me how it is on the best days." Because of VetLink turning that in, sending me to a doctor, she filled out what's called a nexus letter. I didn't have to be evaluated by their very biased staff because the VA, being a government entity, doesn't like to spend money on people. It likes to spend money on itself. Um, and that got me my 100%. I fought from 2018 to 2024 just to get a rating for them to admit how bad they screwed me up and put me to a point where I'm able to live now, basically. That's part of my move to Florida. There's 2 VA centers around there that I can just use for free. Their medical is dodgy at best, like someone said. Um, but VetLink was, 810 Flint here charging veterans to increase ratings just doesn't sit right with me. VetLink was one of the predatory ones. Um, so when you get your rating, the day that you put in to have the increase and the day that they actually give you the increase, you get back pay. VetLink wanted 50% of that. Thankfully, they were bought out by a company called Remedical. And the only reason I bring this up now is A, Memorial Day, and B, because there's a whole thing going on in the veteran community right now, mostly centered around Remedical. And I'm not here to defend them, but they bought out the predatory company and are charging me less. I've got 2 more months of payment. The overall payment is a lot less. The monthly payment's higher, but I'm saving close to 10 grand. And it's a lot. Um, we shouldn't have to pay, I agree, 810, but you get what you pay for, and sometimes free ain't the best. Free is usually through nonprofits, which you can look around Flint, and I'll tell you right now, those people are underpaid or trying to get money on the back end or X, Y, and Z. The ones that are underpaid hate their lives. They don't want to be there. They don't want to help you. They're in a bad mood. They may not write down everything the way that they're supposed to, like the first VSO I went to. And yes, there are some great free ones out there. The Legion, great. You know, a lot of those groups, absolutely astounding, depending on your post. The local group. But several of us are stuck. Several veterans. I know a guy, not to be lewd or rude, but he was in an MRAP, a mine resistant ambush protected vehicle. We all think of him as like Humvees on steroids, basically. He was the gunner. Uh, RPG blew up along the side. He caught shrapnel in the face. And as they were trying to get away, he was the first vehicle in the convoy. An IED went off. And I hate to laugh at Asato, or maybe it wasn't Asato. I hate to laugh at the guy. He was in a different platoon. The IED went off, and shrapnel came into the cab and cut off half his junk. And the VA said that doesn't impact anything but your sex life. And he got underrated. I don't know how he's doing today. I see pictures, he seems to be doing okay. A couple of my brothers, they went through some hell. Justin Bentham reached out to me. He's no longer a U.S. citizen, by the way. His experiences with the VA caused him to renounce his citizenship. He is now a citizen of Sweden with his beautiful wife, Minu, I believe it is. Uh, he, they wanted to deny him a rating after the man fell off a mountain and broke his spleen. Not a bone. He literally ruptured an organ from the fall. Um, Once we got him back in fighting shape, because sending him home just wasn't an option at the time. We were too undermanned. We I was up on a mountain and I saw them, my platoon. I was on an overwatch. I saw them go up a valley and get ambushed. He was the driver, and the IED that went off bashed his head into a bulletproof glass so hard with his helmet on that the glass broke and he was concussed. I've been in a few of those myself. Um, One of the problems I tried going to the VA for was a traumatic brain injury. When I tell you guys I have brain damage, I'm telling a joke, but it is honest and true. I do have brain damage. They denied it. They tried denying Bentham. They tried saying the ambush never happened. He needed me and several others to write sworn statements. I mean, official fucking documents saying that he got blown the fuck up and that he ruptured an organ because the VA wouldn't believe it and they didn't want to pay for what the US government had broken. That's part of the contract we signed. I go out, I take care of your dirty business, whatever it may be. And if I end up getting hurt or damaged, you fix it. And if you can't fix it, then you pay me for the loss of that part of my life. They didn't want to take care of him. Um, Caleb Richburg, kid I met while I was on rear detachment. I didn't deploy the second time. My unit did. I was having some problems with the aforementioned depression, PTSD. So I stayed home. I took care of guys. I got some ready to deploy. I trained some. He came back. Uh, he caught some weird ass Afghani stomach bug that literally ate his stomach from the inside out. He tried getting help through the VA and he decided enough was enough. And he decided to remove himself from the census. So I do understand some things when my experiences aren't the same as some groups in the US, but I understand being looked at as being less than human and being disposable. I I, I can say that. But with Memorial Day coming up, I got all these friends that just aren't around anymore. We had so many big plans when we got out. You know, a lot of us were going to get together, buy some motorcycles, ride across the country. Mind you, we were 18, 19, 20, 21-year-old kids. We thought these things were doable. We forgot that, life exists. So all of us were going to get together and just go drink, live in the same cities as each other, and looking at a picture, there's so many of them missing. I've had great mentors taken from me in country, and that hurt a lot. And I've had dear friends taken from me in country, and that destroyed me. Oh, one of them died on my birthday, and birthday's now bittersweet. Like, hey, family loves me, but Sergeant Brown isn't here anymore. Um, but what hurts the most is when you get home and there's no one. That there's less friends year after year than there were, the previous year. And I honestly think if we were to do a Operation Enduring Freedom 10 reunion, I think there's about maybe 75% of us left. Maybe. It's not a lot. I mean, that's a lot of people gone. And the problem's starting to resolve itself. Um, After years of blowback from the veteran community. I mean, mind you, over 120,000 veterans were put on these secret waiting lists and denied care. Honestly, they're just hoping we die off so they didn't have to pay us or, waste resources on doctors to fix us or X, Y, and Z. At least in their mind, it's a waste. Um, Years of pushback from the veteran community, from our friends and family, from people like you. We're seeing a change in the VA today where it's still toxic. They still really hate to be there. They really hate their lives, but they can't just brush us off anymore. 810, I know of two people who the PACT Act has helped. Um, my very first team leader, Sergeant Day, and another guy, Rios. Um, some of the stuff that I went through with the burn pits, uh, we couldn't throw away batteries. We couldn't, especially radio batteries, because they still hold a charge that's not enough to power the radio. And you don't want to give somebody basically an ignition source to blow you up. So we'd have to burn those. And me being the lowest ranking guy at the time, or one of the lowest ranking, is my job to burn the trash. So I got a lot of that in my lungs. Um, Honestly, that's why I don't mind smoking. I've already done more than enough damage. If something's gonna take me out with my lungs, it's gonna be that. So I might as well just enjoy myself. Um, and we've seen the change. It took a lot of advocacy. It took a lot of balls. It took a lot of people speaking up, speaking out, and it took years of fighting. And the really fucked up part is people and veterans in other countries think that vets here are taken care of. Like, good God, what are you doing to your guys when they get out? You know, especially if I didn't wear my hat, other veterans wouldn't know that I'm a vet, or my T-shirt today. The reason I wear my hat, or I do wear certain veteran apparel, it isn't to show off I'm a veteran to you guys. Honestly, while I appreciate you all being here, and I love and adore your support. I love and adore your viewpoints. When it comes to veterans, I can give a rat's ass what you think. It's for my brothers. Anyone that was in the army knows the four lost lieutenants, which is my old division badge. Four lost lieutenants pointing north. And so they can identify me. And at times, if they need help, they can come to me, or if they just want to sit down and talk. There's been a lot of nights where a drunk brother has called me and has confided in me that he was thinking about getting off the ride early. And, I'd stay up all night and talk to him. There have been people when I was younger and I was still going to bars who would see some sort of veteran apparel on me and chat me up. And, a couple days or weeks later, run into them again. They say thank you because uh, looking at getting off the carousel. And I talked them out of it. Some wives and sisters and mothers and fathers have called me and thanked me for being a good ear for their soldier, or their veteran. Unfortunately, the veteran is no longer with us. It is a major problem. They say 22 a day. 22 men and women just like me a day go out, turn our own lights out. Um, but that's an average. Days like today, weather like today, this time of year, it's a hell of a lot lower. Um, Most of these that you'll find happen around early spring because that's when a lot of people's birthdays are. And someone who wasn't there, you remember them, it hits you like a rock, and you fall into that depression. Or some of them are just alone, no one to talk to, and they decide, well, if there's no one here for me, why am I here? Uh, the others are around the major holidays, so especially the holiday season around November, December through early January. That's when most go away. But and 810 Flint popping up on the Facebook side. I brought a mouse, but all the USBs on Mickey's computer are taken. I had highlighted. To quote, I did a research paper on it and it's down from 22 a day only because so many vets passed during COVID. Yeah, we there's also a surge in that 22 a day because many of us felt isolated. I was blessed to have a loving wife, children, and my in-laws across the street. At that time, my mom and dad were still around. I could call them. I could always call my brother, my blood brother. But being locked in your house all day and told you can't go out, told you can't do this, you can't do that. If you're all alone in this world, it'll literally kill you. Yeah, exactly. 10 Flint. The numbers aren't really down. It's just the pool has shrunk. I want you to take that in for a second. If we just count the conflicts from the global war on terror, that is 20 years, 23 years of fighting, 23 years of putting young men and women through the meat grinder, 23 years of horrible experiences, of nightmares, living a nightmare, 23 years of abuse, 23 years of war just from the GWAT era. And if you consider the toted statistic, I don't know how true it is, of 1% of Americans will serve 23 years. So you take 1% of two generations just from the United States alone. That is a massive number. And then you take that massive number and you realize that the 22 a day is down, not because things have gotten better, but because that pool has shrunk so bad. It's the most resilient of us that are still here. I'm not one of those, or the ones with an amazing support system. I am one of those. I've got a wife who understands when I just pop in my earbuds and I don't talk for 3 days straight. I don't say a thing to anyone. I just listen to music. I zone out. She doesn't harp on it. She asks me if I'm okay. She takes care of me. She loves and understands that I'm going through a thing at the time. She may keep a closer eye on me, or she may realize that I'm just trying to fix myself, whatever the case may be. I've got a daughter that still lives with me right now who cares. I got a brother who calls me at least twice a week who cares. Um, some guys just don't have that. And the ones that didn't have that, are human, many of them aren't around anymore. There are some insanely extra human guys that can just deal with that shit like a brick wall. They are the most stoic people alive. I can never be one of them. I mean, there are times I really want to be the stoic one and just, huh, be a man of few words and nothing phases me. That's not me though. That's not me at all. Um, I've had some great leaders, some great leaders in my time, and I've had some terrible leaders in my time. And I've told you guys before, if I could, I'd rejoin the military in a heartbeat. But you also see the state I'm in right now. I'm kind of, emotional. A physical fucking wreck. The deal is, it is Stockholm syndrome. You go through shared hardship, is what the military calls it. What everyone else in the world calls it is trauma bonding. You go through the worst fucking things in the world together and you get through it. And that makes, these feelings of euphoria. And when you look back on it, you only remember the good stuff. You've blocked out the bad stuff. I'm not going to say the army cost me my first marriage, but I'm going to say that it was a decent part of why I couldn't make it work. Another decent part was I wasn't a good human being then, and neither was she. Um, but missing my I think this was 2012, missing my stepson's birthday. It was a regular work day, but I didn't see my stepson the entire day. I went into work I woke up at 05. I was out the door 05:15. I didn't walk in the door until 23:30. So 11:30 at night, my stepson was already asleep because the first sergeant wanted us to stay. He's the top NCO of the company. The thing is, he left at 5 to go have dinner with his family and watch his kid play softball. I've had some terrible fucking leaders. I've had some amazing leaders, kids straight out of West Point, and I make fun of West Pointers all the time. Just not here because most of y'all wouldn't understand. Uh, they're usually arrogant and don't know their asshole from a hole in the ground. This kid comes in and he asked to be taught things. He took guys who he identified as having certain behavioral health risk, and he would pay out of his own pocket to take them out, mountain biking, something, get out of the barracks, get out of your own head. And I've had some lieutenants that, well, I've had one NCO actually encourage people to remove themselves from the census. And I don't wish ill on a lot of people, but I do wish ill upon that man. And I don't mean death, but I do mean hardship. I hope that he is somewhere in a rainy city right now, homeless, covered in rags, trying to keep warm with a newspaper. Because I saw him approach so many young soldiers and told them to end themselves. It's men like that are the reason why we have so many problems today. And I wish nothing but the worst for him. Absolute worst. I know today is kind of a heavy discussion, guys, and I thank you for being here with me for it. I don't think any of us, whether you served or not, after 23, 24 24, maybe 22 or 21, after 2 fucking decades of war. Don't know actually, none of us don't know anyone that hasn't served, right? Like, everyone knows someone that served. Everyone knows someone that has put on a uniform, taken the oath of enlistment, or been commissioned, and has done what they were asked to do. And this affects everyone. It might be 1 or 2 degrees of separation for you. It might be you, but it affects everyone. And to tie it all together, to tie it all together, I'll go on to PTSD one more time. PTSD is post-traumatic stress disorder. In other words, you are so stressed out for so long that it changes your brain chemistry and how you perceive the world. Um, you're constantly on the lookout for threats. In my case, it's trash bags on the side of the road, people that I don't recognize coming into a new area. There's several suicide bombers, several, and V-beds. Luckily the Afghanis weren't as good at it as the Iraqis. Otherwise, we would have had a lot worse. And it probably saved a lot of their lives too. Um, so I keep my eyes out for new people in an area that I haven't seen them before. Uh, Crazy drivers. I don't like being in places where there's something taller than me for obvious reasons. They used to hide up in the mountains and shoot at us. I don't like being in plywood buildings at all. I've got scars on my body from shrapnel. It came down, hit, went through the fucking plywood. Um, but I see it a lot in Flint too, where you don't know if that person walking down your street is there for a bad reason because you've seen it before. You don't know if that car creeping along is looking for an address to deliver food or to shoot up the home. You don't know if that group of kids down the street is coming to pick up their friend and play or coming to fight the kid. You don't know here. Not to mention, you don't know if your water's clean. And you don't know, and you don't know, and you're constantly stressed out, and you're constantly on watch, and you're constantly having your guard up. So to tie it all together, I want you to think that maybe not all PTSD has to be from some big grand event that happened in your life. I'd say most Flint residents have it too. And the thing is, the few that speak up about it are oftentimes derided. They try to compare those residents to soldiers. Well, you didn't see what he saw. You didn't go through what he did. I'll tell you, as soldiers, at least in my era, because I am now considered an older vet by many standards, in my era, we were only in those situations for a year at a time. And we got between 18 and 24 months back in the States to train and to try to decompress. That's true. Flint residents, however, don't get that break. It's every day, every hour. You can wake up at 4 a.m. hearing a car just trying to get to work or deliver food for DoorDash or whatever. And you start freaking out because you don't know if you're about to be a victim. I just, So yeah, it did tie into Flint a bit today. Just don't judge others for the fight that they're going through. Some people may thrive in high pressure environments. Other people may crumble without support. It's been an hour. It's been a long time since I've ended on time. So I'm going to get up now and end it since I'm solo dolo today. I want to thank you guys for all your support. I want to thank you for all the support you show Mickey, Wintus, Clack, Anna, Sister Audrey, um, Miss Ashley, everyone. I want to thank you for all the support you show them because they're out here on the front lines fighting every day, sometimes multiple times a day if you're Wintus and you have multiple shows. And I want you to thank you for the support that you guys show each other. Because Flint is a community, and without community, it all falls apart. So